Long before the Tiananmen Square massacre in June 1989, the first appeal for democracy in China was actually initiated by a few scholars around 1978. They started by expressing their complaints of the totalitarian system and their desires for a democratic China on a wall in Beijing, using big character posters, which later became known as the Xidan Democracy Wall. This event had a significant influence on modern China. Poet Huang Xiang was a pioneer of this democracy enlightenment movement. Huang Xiang was born into a bureaucratic landlord family. His father was a military officer in the nationalist army and was killed in prison by the communists. However, the suffering of his family didn't end at his father's death. The unfortunate fate passed on to the young Huang Xiang. He was raised in a miserable time. Life at that time was full of class struggle, imprisonment, and terror. Huang Xiang was seized by the peasants for show trials on the street at age 9, and was forced to quit school at 11 because of his family origin. When he was 13 years old, he was labeled a heretic and a bastard because of his views toward life differed from the communist ideals. His longing for life was nothing but the desire to express his feelings through writing and reciting poems. Nevertheless, in that ignorant and hostile society, his files contained a string of accusations: the son of a nationalist spy, class enemy, anti-party, anti-socialist, etc. He was doomed to live in the lowest social layer in this communist totalitarian system because of his family origin and his personality. I was imprisoned 6 times, all because of my pursuit of poetry, which was considered a crime at that time. As early as 1959, when I was only a teenager, I loved the blue sky, the white clouds, and the endless grasslands. Especially in Tibet, the snowy mountains are solemn and respectful. They can impart a sense of purity. Of course, I also had some romantic ideas, like meeting a shepherd girl who would come down from the snowy mountain while singing a song. That was the illusion of a poet, but I was thrown into prison for that for 4 years during the best time of my youth. A poet would normally dream of freedom, but I lost both the freedom of expression and my physical freedom because of my dream. In addition to writing folk songs in his early years, Huang Xiang seriously started the creative work of writing poems in the 1960s, before the Cultural Revolution. His most representative works were written during and after the Cultural Revolution. In his over 40 years of writing career in mainland China, he has accumulated more than 3 million characters of manuscripts, but none of them were published in the mainland. Nonetheless, his creative enthusiasm was never stamped out. In his own words, his poems belong to the future, belong to the history books of the future generations. Maybe it is because I'm optimistic, so I can endure and survive.
这些朋友和我一起，他们有这几个人的名字：李家华、方家华、穆建刚。这就是中国当时最早的民主权运动的第一把手。
My friends and I started the very first appeal for democracy in China. These are the pioneers of Chinese democracy. Over the last several decades, we had always been very submissive, accepting whatever the communists imposed on us, and had this kind of notion. But today, as a human being, we must stand up. We went to Beijing to express our voice. Huang Xiang went to the office of the People's Daily, and on the wall he painted a huge torch. Along its side, a 1-foot-tall Chinese phrase, "Enlightenment." Young people in Beijing, hand in hand, formed a circle to protect me. I didn't know why, all of a sudden, my memory became so good. I could remember 6 of my long poems that have over 600 lines. I recited all of them without stop. I felt that everyone's energy was focused on me. We got very excited. I felt very proud. For the first time, human beings raise a human question. Why the party can dictate the life and death of thousands? Why we have to worship its leader as an idol? Ring the bell of truth, the torch said. Ignite the lamp of science. Restore the human kindness, and hand over totalitarianism to death. People were shocked and touched by his bold move. The street became restless. At this time, a plainclothes police in the crowd suddenly questioned, "Huang Xiang, who is the idol you're referring to?"
当然，我指的偶像是现实社会的偶像，也是个抽象意义的千年的封建传统的那种偶像。
Of course, the idol I was referring to was Mao Zedong.
就是神话了的那种万人顶礼膜拜那种偶像。我反对是那么东西。这事情震动很大，整个北京城哗然。
This event had a major impact on Beijing. In the same evening, the Central Committee of the Chinese Communist Party had an emergency meeting. A curfew was imposed in Beijing. The CCP sent an aircraft to our hometown to fetch our files urgently. I felt that those in power in a dictatorship really didn't have any confidence. They got so nervous. They are so weak. Actually, just a poet showed up. If they gave me the freedom to publish my works, I wouldn't need to come to express myself on the street of Beijing. I felt that when I was reciting my poems, the whole crowd was moving with me. Many people had tears in their eyes. Huang Xiang was charged with disturbing social order and sentenced to 3 years in forced labor camp. The prolonged imprisonment life, repeated arrests and detentions relentlessly tortured Huang Xiang's body and soul. He became weaker and weaker, as if he no longer had the strength to struggle with the formidable dictatorship. At the daytime, he locked himself in a small room, sustaining the weak pulse of life with poem. During the night, he tried to drive away the miseries of his fate with dreams, wishing that one day a girl in red would fly down from the snowy mountain and help him to dispel all of the sufferings in life. Miraculously, he met a girl and they got married. They now live peacefully together in the United States.